Because a family business requires a lot of care. It requires commitment, both financially and emotionally. It requires sacrifice. It requires compromise. It requires thinking about what values we all believe in and then building something on that. That's the difference between us and a publicly traded company with 1 million shareholders who are only owning the stock for as long as the price goes up. And at the end of 90 days, if it hasn't gone up, they sell. At the end of 90 days, you do not sell your grandfather's name. Okay? At the end of 2 or 3 years, maybe, or 10 years. But if you and your 5 cousins hate each other and every day it is a fight, I promise you the business will not grow too successfully. Or if it does grow, it won't grow to the size it could. I had a guest lecturer in my class at INSEAD last week. His family invented one of the most important companies in the world. And his father created this company with the resources from his grandfather, and it's an Indian family, very entrepreneurial. And the father and his oldest son got into a dispute, and Grandpa sided with the oldest son. And they fought in court for 6 years in Singapore. And nobody won. And you know one of the consequences of their big fight? They owned 2 pieces of property in Singapore. One was on the corner, it's now called the Wheelock Place, and the other one was on the other corner, it's now the Marriott Hotel. And those 2 properties are worth $1 billion a piece, minimum. And the family lost both of them in this big fight in the 80s. They had to give both up. And so while the family's still well off, they don't have their family business anymore. Another company acquired it. The oldest son has not spoken to his father since then, which to me is the real loss. Because I can get another business, but I can't get another family. But the economic loss of losing these 2 pieces of properties was huge. And that's the consequence of not working together. Okay? That's the struggle. Because I promise you the business will not do as well when you're fighting as when you're working together. So, talk about succession in the next generation. Harry Levinson at Harvard said, a special problem of any chief executive is that whatever he or she changes something that his predecessor established or suggested, the very fact of making a change becomes an indictment of the predecessor. This is one of the issues in family businesses. We come in, we take over, but can we change anything? And this is where, I'm going to talk a little about social support, but where the next generation needs their parents' and grandparents' support because they're going to be running a different business than you ran. I was in business myself for a long time. I was the CEO of my own company. When I look back at some of the decisions we made and some of the things we did 20 years ago, it seems so naive. We would be driven out of business if we made those same decisions because competition has changed, markets have changed, customer demands have changed, products have changed. You know, IBM almost lost their whole company because of their business model and not willing to change. IBM, when they came out with the PC, do you know how long it was supposed to last in the product line? How many years? The portable computer, the desktop computer? 4 years. You know what Dell did when they came out? They said our product will last 7 days. Now, when prices are falling on components, and you've got 4 years of thinking into it, and the other guy's got 7 days, who's going to win? And who doesn't sell PCs anymore? They ship them to China. And so that's part of what we have to think about. The next generation's going to have to make tough decisions and do things in a different way. Another one, and this gets directly back to what Mr. Canoe talked about, and we did not compare notes on this. But this is Peter Drucker about how to save the family business from the Wall Street Journal. And he said family members working the business must be at least as able and hardworking as an unrelated employee. This is another challenge we face because as our business grows, we may not have enough qualified family members to fill the key jobs. And so we have to bring in outsiders for a lot of positions. This is one of the things that Cargill has done so well. There has not been a Cargill or Macmillan at the top of that company for the last 20 years. And earlier on, they had a non-family CEO, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in a moment. But it's much cheaper to pay a lazy nephew not to come to work than to keep him on the payroll. Because he damages the whole company. Now, you made that comment when we were having coffee, and I knew I had this slide saved up. And Peter Drucker said that. Kind of the father of modern management. But it is. And so one of the things we have to start to think about is how do we keep quality in our family? And I'm going to show you some slides about that right now. Because our family members have to be committed and they have to be capable, the 2 C's. Because our non-family employees expect that of us. We have to set the example. And it's a challenge. Now, what do we need for management skills in the 21st century? We need entrepreneurial skills. Every family business around the world was started by an entrepreneur. The only exception, and even then the entrepreneurs snuck in, is that there were a few businesses started in the communist countries. The government ran them for a long time, lost a lot of money, and then an entrepreneur took over. So that's the exception. But generally speaking, entrepreneurs create new businesses. And that's where all the job creation, that's where the economic development, that's where the taxes come from. That skill has to stay forever because it's a foundation. But then we need to think about executive skills. How do we manage complex organizations? The example in the back, a holding company with 8 or 10 or 11 operating companies. Very big challenge. That's organization. That is what we teach at INSEAD. Now we're trying to teach the entrepreneurship too. Strategy skills. How do we fit into developing business strategies and sound governance, sound decision making to keep the business going? And then the last one, and that is leadership. How do we develop a firm that's empowering? How do we develop a firm like Apple? How many patents has Apple created in the last 25 years? Nope, wrong. How many patents do you think Apple has in the last 25 years? Well, how old's the patent on the Macintosh? 25 years old. Now, how can you be a technology company and your most important patent is 25 years? Because they know how to empower people. They know how to do things differently. They know how to connect with customers in a different way. They didn't invent the iPod. MP3 players have been everywhere. They invented how you use and sell and market the iPod. They invented how it looks. They invented how it touches. They invented how it tastes. That's Apple. Now, their 2 patents, by the way, are freestanding staircases made out of glass. Steve and his team developed that, so that if you go to any of the stores, you'll see these staircases up and around. They have the patent on it because he was told you couldn't do it. And the clear plastic case for the Macintosh is a separate patent because you couldn't make plastic without bubbles in it, and they developed a way to do it. But the Macintosh operating system is exactly the same one that I sold 25 years ago when my company became an Apple dealer. Hasn't changed a bit. Leopard is a nice improvement, but it's only improvement by prettier colors and more folders hanging in different places. That's what we need to think about. How do we empower people to position our company in a different way? I've put some of the slides here and I've talked about it. I want to save time so I can talk more about Cargill. But I also want to give you some specific examples of what we need to do with the next generation. So here's the critical factors for developing next generation talent based on our research. We say there's 5 factors. 1, consider the individual needs. Not everyone should be in the family business. And not everyone should be in the same role. Some family members may have the talent and the drive and the desire to be a top leader. Others may be a great employee. Others may be a great manager. Think about how your family fits together and how the individuals are. Life and work experience. How do we get our kids and the next generation the kind of experience that will make them capable for the 21st century? I'm going to show you these things in a moment. Social support. How do we support them? Now, this is one that's tough in traditional societies where there's a lot of hierarchy because a lot of times the senior generation didn't show a lot of support. The best example is in China. In China, your role as a father is to beat your son up as regularly as you can. No matter what the son does, it's not good enough. Okay? And Chinese fathers are quite proud of this. It's not very fun, and now they're starting to have a huge problem because they're sending their sons to the United States, United Kingdom, or Canada, or Australia for education. And the kids are coming back and saying, Dad, good management is not about beating someone up, particularly your own son. But they still do it. So social support, I'm going to show a few ideas on that. Education and training, I'm in that business, so I have to sell a little of that. And then assessment and feedback. sharing ideas with how people are performing. So let me show you some examples of these.